you guys. It is BJ, and I am back with another video slash podcast. First off, let me welcome you back to the podcast, back to my YouTube channel. If you are a first time listener or viewer, then welcome to my channel. I discuss all things in regards to becoming your higher self. I discuss personal self-improvement, spiritual alignment, all of those great things that add up to us women becoming the best version of ourselves. So, what are we going to talk about today? What I want to talk to you guys about is why it's important to have a higher self journey. I know that I throw this word around a lot. Not everybody knows exactly what the higher self is. So I'm also going to go into some detail about what that means. But ultimately, we're going to talk about why it's really important for everybody to go through this transformation, this transition. And please understand that going through a higher self journey isn't just like one and done, like you just have one inside of your lifetime and then, you're you're perfect after that. That doesn't necessarily happen. We all, if you're, become more consciously aware of the things that you want in your life, over time, the things that you want are going to evolve. The person that you see yourself being as your greatest self is going to change over time. The person that I thought was my greatest self when I was 21 is not the same person in my year of 30. So, just understand that the higher self, the idea that you have for who your higher self is, it's going to change over time, which means that you're possibly going to have multiple higher self journeys. So, just save this video just in case 2-3 years from now, you're like, wow, like I really feel like it's time for me to go through another transition and transformation. Like, let me just remind myself what that looks like. Okay. So, I am going to share my screen. Okay. Why is it important to have a higher self journey? All right, so what is a higher self, right? That's the main question that a lot of people have is like, oh my God, what is that? What does that even mean? So the higher self is an anchored reality where you are living at your greatest potential. It is where you have evolved to the highest possible level of your spiritual self and your physical self. But ultimately, it is where you have mastered the trifecta of you are spiritually, physically, and mentally healthy. So at the end of the day, in a very short, straightforward definition, the higher self is inside of this incarnation, inside of the body and the life that you're living right now, you living at your greatest potential. So that is what the higher self is. So we don't realize how disconnected we are from our lives until one of these things happen. And I'm sure you guys have experienced this before. I know this has happened to me before I started my higher self journey. So like one thing is we'll have a major life tragedy and we wonder like, how did I get here? How did I allow this to happen? That's what happened with me. I got into a marriage that I shouldn't have gotten into. Sorry, excuse my phone. I got into a marriage shouldn't have gotten into with somebody that was emotionally and physically abusive, and it everything just kind of fell apart before I was like, how, and I'm trying not to cuss, but how did I get here? You know what I mean? So that is one thing that kind of wakes you up and it's like, man, like it's really time for me to make a transition and go through a life transformation. The second thing is when we allow someone to help us dissect our lives through therapy or counseling. So that's what I do. I'm not a licensed therapist, but I am a coach and a counselor, and a teacher, of course, because I'm teaching you guys these things. So when you hire someone like a therapist, again, I don't want you guys to think that I want you to only hire me, because it's not necessary. No matter who you hire, just hire somebody that works inside of this space of, life improvement, to help you kind of dissect what's going on. And what tends to happen is when you do hire these people and have these meetings and things, then you start to realize like, wow, like I really am completely disconnected from who I want to be and the things that I want in my life. And then another thing that kind of gets us to realize that it's time for us to make a life transformation is we become very sad. We become very disconnected from living, and it feels like we aren't living our purpose. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have felt that before, where you're just waking up and you're like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm going to the job I hate. Like, I'm in a relationship that I really don't want to be in. I don't really like my friends like that. Like I'm eating terrible, and you just start to get spiral into this like depression and this sadness of like, wow, like the things that I know I want for the things that I know I want in my life, I'm not seeing in front of me. I'm not visualizing it. It's not inside of my environment, and that can cause a lot of inner turmoil. So what tends to also happen when you kind of are going through that realization is that you'll start numbing. You'll start numbing it with alcohol, with drugs, with food, all types of things. So these are just some of the red flags that you'll see when you know that it's time for your life to go through a transformation. So when we feel like our life isn't at all what we imagined, it is because we have been allowing our unhealed selves to make major life decisions for us. Decisions such as like, where are you going to live? Who are you going to date? What am I eating on a regular basis? What type of job I'm working in? When we are when you start to realize that your life is not at all in alignment with who you feel like you truly are, it is because and again, let's take a little bit of ownership here, and I say this with love, and I say this with grace and understanding, but you allowed your unhealed self, the unhealed part of yourself that needed that guidance, that needed that help, that needed the support, you allowed that part of your brain and your personality to make decisions for you that were not inside of alignment. So that is what I'm talking about when I say the unhealed self. So the unhealed self is the version of our personality that is still living in the past. So this self is still dealing with the traumas of childhood and the traumas of adulthood too, because there you could have some traumatic things that happen in adulthood as well that influence the way that you make decisions. And that unhealed version of ourselves makes choices so that we continue to live the same life over and over and over again. So I've talked about this a little bit on my channel before, but what tends to happen is our brain chooses to put ourselves inside of situations. Again, this is when you're living unconsciously and you are allowing your unhealed self to make decisions. Your brain is automatically, this is on autopilot. Your brain is choosing to get inside of situations that you've already been in before. So you're going to continue the cycle of being inside of the same toxic or abusive relationship that you had been in before, or you're going to continue to eat the bad things that you shouldn't be eating, or you're going to continue to entertain people, friends, family, potential partners, entertain people that remind you of the relationships that you've had in the past, even if those relationships were traumatic inside of your life. And that is because your brain is like, ooh, that feels familiar. Your brain is like, okay, maybe we can change the outcome if of this story if we try it again. Let's just keep trying. Let's keep trying and trying and trying because this feels familiar and we want to create a different outcome. What we have to do is we have to allow ourselves to heal. And then what you'll start to see is you become very conscious of the decisions that you would have made. And you're like, wait a second, why am I deciding to do this? Why am I choosing to be around these people? Why am I choosing to eat this way? Why am I choosing to entertain these spaces that I know that I should not be in? So that is ultimately what happens when you go through the healing phase of your higher self journey. So you're going to notice, what you'll notice once you go through your higher self journey is there's two versions of yourself. There's the unhealed version of yourself and the healed self, and they're going to react very differently inside of situations. And this is why it's really important to have a higher self journey, because these reactions directly impact the way that you interact with the world, the way that you make choices in life. So the unhealed version of yourself would be living on autopilot. Remember how we talked about it before? We're just letting our brains make decisions for us. The unhealed version of ourselves only knows how to react based on fear, based on guilt, and based on shame. You know what I mean? That unhealed version of yourself is like, you know what? I'm afraid that I'm never going to be able to find a partner again. So I'm just going to settle for this type of relationship. That is an unhealed version of yourself that is operating out of fear. You know what I mean? So the other reaction is your unhealed version of yourself are going to make decisions for you to keep you stagnant. Remember, the unhealed version of yourself is living in the past and is trying to make decisions to keep you in the past. Your unhealed self is not going to propel you forward. So the healed self is going to be living more consciously. The healed self is going to be paying attention to the decisions that you're making, is going to be paying attention to the thoughts that you're having, is going to be paying attention to the actions that you are taking, the way that you are reacting to situations, the way that you're making choices inside of your life. Your unhealed self is going to be very conscious and paying very close attention to all of these things that are going on inside of your life, even the way that other people react to you, the way that people talk to you, the way that people reach out to you, how they choose to spend their time with you. Those are the things that your healed self will start to pay attention to. Your healed self will also choose to react based on love, joy, and acceptance. The healed self isn't going to be afraid. The healed self isn't going to be ashamed. The healed self is going to be like, you know what? I enjoy doing I enjoy doing X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to do it because I love doing it. And I'm not going to feel afraid of doing it because I'm fearful of the way people are going to treat me. I'm not going to be ashamed of myself. The healed version of yourself is going to walk into situations that feel like it would be uncomfortable or fearful, but your unhealed self is that your healed self is going to be like, you know what? I'm going to follow my intuition. I'm going to do things that feel good for me. I'm going to do things that I know is going to bring me happiness and joy, even if I fail. So the healed self is going to choose and take action in a different manner than the unhealed self will. And then lastly, the healed self is going to make decisions that are going to help us progress in life. The healed self is looking forward, is not focused on the past. The healed self is like, look, I know who my higher self is, so I'm going to consciously choose to take action and do things and only align myself around people and in environments that are going to be supportive of that vision that I have for myself. So when you go through a healing journey, you are consciously choosing to learn how to make decisions that are based on love, acceptance, and happiness. Again, like this is why it's so important to go through that higher self journey, because during the higher self journey, you're going to go through that healing journey and you're going to learn like, look, I have the power to choose. I have the power to choose love in my life. I have the power to choose happiness in my life. I don't have to feel stuck just because I've been here for 10, 15 years. I don't have to feel stuck because everybody in my family thinks that this is something I should be doing. When you go through that healing journey, you start to feel more empowered to do the things that you know is in alignment with who your higher self is and the vision that you have for who your higher self could potentially be. And also, you're consciously choosing to be present in your body and deal with your emotions directly. When you and I hope that if you're somebody that's watching this, you've gone through some of my material before, but I've talked to you guys about how important it is to be able to control and manage your emotions, because your emotions have a direct frequency to it. And that is what attracts things into our life. That is what manifests things inside of our life. So when you are consciously choosing to be present, then when your emotions start to get when you start to get amped up and you feel yourself having a reaction, you have a quicker reaction time to that. You don't allow yourself to bubble over and get angry and start choosing to do things that are not in alignment. You don't allow your body to get on autopilot because you just let your emotions get out of control. When you consciously choose to be inside of your body, when you go through that healing journey, then you're not going to allow your emotions to take over. You're going to be like, you know what? I am choosing happiness, even if I'm inside of a situation that doesn't feel super comfortable right now. I'm going to consciously choose to be peaceful. I'm going to consciously choose to be confident, even if I'm inside of a situation that maybe I don't feel super confident in. So that's another reason why it's really important to go through a higher self journey, is because the way that you deal with your emotions completely changes. So once you start your higher self journey, you start to feel encouraged that you can start living a life that's more meaningful. You start to feel like, you know what, like, man, maybe I've made some pretty bad and wrong decisions in the past, but I feel encouraged that I trust myself to start making better decisions in the future. You also begin to relearn who you are and what you like. So you start to learn what you like to do, what you like to eat, how or what you want to eat in order for you to have the body that you want. You start to learn how you want to take care of your body, how you want to move your body. And then you start to learn, where do you want to work? What are my hobbies? What are the things that I want to do? What are the things that I want to spend a majority of my time in? So that's another thing that shows up when you have your higher self journey. And then the last thing is, you are better able to manifest things into your life that you truly want and to desire. Listen, it's way easier to manifest things when you have that inner burning desire inside of your body to attract those things and to manifest those things in your life. But when you're living a life that is out of alignment, it's much harder for you to manifest those things into your life, because why would spirit, God, the universe, whatever you want to call that energy, why would spirit manifest great and wonderful and positive things inside of your life when you are dating jerks, when you are not taking care of your body, when you're not taking care of your children, when you are consciously choosing to continue to get inside of these relationships or friendships with people who tear you down and make you feel like you aren't confident? Why would spirit of the universe help you create greatness inside of your life? Why would spirit give you those gifts? You know what I mean? Like, you have to make it make sense. You are an embodiment of God. You are a piece of God. You're a piece of the universe, and you're walking around carrying this energy, right? When you're living out of alignment, that energy doesn't have the opportunity to thrive. So it's going to be much harder for you to manifest and attract the things in your life that you really actually want and deserve. So listen, as you go through your higher self journey over time, one, you start to live life with much less regrets. You walk into your impulses and the things that your intuition is telling you, you start to walk into it with so much bravery. You're like, you know what, I'm good, because I know no matter what happens, I'm taken care of. I know no matter what happens, I'm still going to be a happy person. I'm going to accept whatever outcome comes of it. So there's no reason for me to be afraid. Over time, you start to believe that you're capable of doing anything, because you are capable of doing anything. You start to feel empowered to chase your dreams. You start to feel like, you know what? I know that I can chase my dreams. I know that I'm deserving of receiving this greatness inside of my life. So I'm going to go for it. You become less judgmental of others. You start to understand, like, look, all of us are just trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? Over time, because your higher self journey is not a straight path. It's going to be ups and downs. So you're going to go through situations where you feel triggered. You're going to go through situations where you feel relapse, when you start texting people, your exes and friends that you know that you shouldn't be entertaining. You're going to go through situations where you start eating terrible, or you start going on social media and looking at things that you know that you shouldn't be looking at. You're going to have relapses. That happens. You know what I mean? And when you really take your higher self journey seriously, and you're like, you know what, here's my low, but I'm going to counteract it with a high, and you meet somebody and you see them and it feels like they're not at their best self right now, you're still going to look at them and be like, you know what, they're just trying to figure out, just like I'm trying to figure it out. So you become so much less judgmental of others. You feel like it doesn't feel good to gossip about people anymore, and it just feels like, they're just trying to figure it out and I'm trying to figure it out. So it is what it is. And then lastly, you become so much more excited to live your life every day, because every morning you're like, look, I have an opportunity to propel myself forward and become an even greater version of myself today. All right. So now that you guys know why, in my opinion, why it's so important to go through a higher self journey, let's take some action. So, one, I want you to commit yourself to having a higher self journey. I want you to commit yourself to, like, look, I am going to hold myself accountable to deciding who I want to be and make conscious choices and decisions to become more of that person every single day that I wake up. So some of the recommendations I have for you in order for you to commit to this is, one, watch one of my videos every week. Again, it doesn't have to be one of my videos. If you have a person or a podcast, video, YouTube or book or what have you that talks about self-improvement and life improvement and things of that sort, just commit yourself to learning and researching about these things at least once a week. I would say once a day, at least committing yourself to 30 minutes a day to personal self-improvement, but at least once a week, that's a good way to start. Book a session with a coach or a therapist. Again, it doesn't have to be me, but I am available for and my books are open for coaching if you do want to book time with me, but it doesn't have to be with me. Just book time with a therapist or a life coach or just somebody, a counselor of that kind, somebody that you trust and believe that's going to be able to help you along your journey. And then the last thing, talk to your friends, ask them what they think that you could be doing differently and tell them to be honest. You know what I mean? Be like, look, like, am I doing okay? Do you, in your honest opinion, like, and make sure it's somebody that you trust and you know that is looking out for you. Be like, what am I doing wrong? You know what I mean? Because personally, for me, I was in a terrible relationship and none of my friends, well, no, I will say one of my friends, but a lot of my friends didn't say anything about it. But I know that if I straight up asked them and been like, look, like, I'm seriously asking you, what is your opinion about the relationship I'm in right now? They would have told me that I need to be running for the hills. I know they would have told me that. So, reach out to somebody that you trust, somebody that you love, and just ask them straight up, like, do you think I'm doing something wrong? What can I do to improve my life? So, and just to kind of close this out, to give you guys some of my resources, my website is bjtheblogger.com. That is where you can find a link to my podcast. You can find links for my coaching sessions or my tarot reading sessions. You can check out my Instagram and my Twitter. They are both BJ the Blogger. And then my podcast is Soul Patterns. You could just search Soul Patterns and it'll show up, Soul Patterns by BJ the Blogger. And that's available on all platforms. But lastly, I just want to make sure I remind you guys, if you're a podcast listener, please do not forget to rate my podcast. These are things that you can do to help me that are free, right? If you don't want to pay for coaching and you're just like, look, I'm just going to watch your videos and allow that to be my coaching, then that's perfectly fine. But help me out by giving me a positive rating, subscribing to this podcast. If you are a YouTube viewer, please like, subscribe, all of those things help me, help my algorithm. And if you want to donate to the cause, my Cash App is $BJ the Blogger. Okay. All right, you guys, I will check you on the next video. Bye. Last thing, my masterclass. If you want to learn a little bit more about becoming your higher self, I have a masterclass that I'm going to link inside of the notes. And just to give you guys, if you want to get into a little bit deeper of becoming your higher self and my personal strategy for becoming your higher self. Okay, I'm really leaving this time. Bye, guys.